MoveOn.org is asking the 2020 Democratic candidates to boycott the AIPAC association. AIPAC is the lobby group that's associated with Israel that was recently called out by Representative Ilhan Omar. And as it currently stands right now, Bernie Sanders and a few other of the Democratic candidates are not going to attend the AIPAC ceremony or event. Now, basically, AIPAC is known as the pro-Israel lobbyist organization, and it's sort of like a rite of passage for like a lot of American politicians to go to, both Democratic and Republican. Because let's face it, because of Citizens United, I always have to say it, because of Citizens United, these politicians are going to be foaming at the mouth to get money and donations so that they can, live their little comfortable lifestyles and at the same time to support policies that AIPAC wants. And so here's 4 reasons why MoveOn is asking the Democratic candidates as well as the political establishment to move away from it. Number 1, AIPAC spent tens of millions of dollars in 2015 to defeat the Iran nuclear deal negotiated by pre-Obama along with international allies. It was a historic diplomatic agreement that Trump has tried to derail since taking office. Number 2, AIPAC has been known to peddle anti-Muslim and anti-Arab rhetoric while giving platforms to those involved in human rights abuses. 3, AIPAC conference is headlined by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, under whose leadership Israel may have committed war crimes. And finally, Netanyahu also recently made a deal to bring, the Israeli KKK ultra-racist party into the next coalition government that he's forming. So those are some of the 4 reasons why MoveOn is asking the Democratic candidates to back away from going to the AIPAC conference. And I think this is a historic deal because for the first time ever, a large lobby group is being challenged, and that's something we don't see here in this country.
They must be anti-Semitic.
It must be. So I'm just going to add on to this that it's very interesting. I think that there's one line that Ilhan Omar said when she was accused of anti-Semitism, because as we know, she was very Muslim, and that's very scary for a lot of people. So she said that, isn't it interesting that I can openly and honestly critique the NRA and no one has an issue with it, but then when I critique AIPAC, a lobbying group that is much larger than the NRA, that talks to more congressmen than the NRA, all of a sudden everyone's freaking out. And it's very interesting how in such a short period of time it's gone from, hey, Ilhan Omar, you're a racist, or whatever wording we want to use because we really don't have a defense to fight back against you with, to this, where a large, very powerful group is saying, hey, we don't want this. I think she's really given people, maybe not permission, because people have always been speaking out against Israel, but these larger groups have been shown that, hey, the blowback isn't that terrible, and even when it does happen, they're not a Muslim woman with a hijab, which has been fear-mongering against for decades and decades since we got into the war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
You bring up a very interesting point, because you know what? There's another thing we need to take away from this, is that the political demographics in this country has changed, as well as political ideology has changed in this country since the founding of Israel up until now. So
since the founding of the internet, and people had access to more information.
That doesn't seem like, you were just showing us beforehand a video of a 6-year-old Palestinian child being arrested for collusion.
They didn't say. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why they.
He was literally being arrested by military police in Palestine by Israeli military, and
school.
He's literally wearing a Spider-Man backpack. Well, it's just.
And not to mention, too, the thing is, people are seeing that now because of the internet, and they're also seeing just the amount of abuse that's happening. You're seeing, it's not only just young children that are being arrested, but you're seeing senior citizens, old women who are like 80 or 90 years old.
Land is being taken that's not owned. They're expanding settlements. They're treating Palestinians like an open-air prison. And I still can't ever forget when Abby Martin was on a Joe Rogan Experience, and it's never left my mind, and I actually had the video I did recently, I know Omar had this, is those shirts that they sell in Israel that have the pregnant woman on it with the crosshair over the baby that says 1 shot, 2 kills. And it's like, this is it's very sad to see that Israel seems to be coming the very thing that it was founded to protect itself from. There's no question that it's become an apartheid state that views different classes of people, and they're already saying that now we're going to start doing genetic testing, and if you're like Paul was talking about this before the show, that if you're a Arab Jew, well, guess what? You don't have the right DNA to be a part of Israel. You're not welcome. Well, if you're black, well, guess what? You don't have the right DNA to be a part of Israel, so get out. And or if you're a Russian Jew, hey, you don't have the right, you're not Ashkenazi enough. So I hate to compare. I mean, to Hitler, but it is still not. I mean,
with genetic purity. I mean, it sounds very similar to something you would hear from Nazi Germany.
People up by their ethnicity, or at least by perceived ethnicity,
or their genetic makeup, which is ridiculous.
And it's like it always comes down to obvious inputs lead to obvious outputs, and Israel has had this guy, and he's very much like the Dick Cheney of Israel.
20 years he's been prime minister, right?
He's been president, prime minister since forever. He's been around since Bush has been around. So what do we have? We have a right-wing guy who's very intelligent, that knows how to play the game very well politically, continuing over decade after decade, just consolidating this power in Israel. And I hate this because it's like he's making Jews look terrible, especially in the Middle East, because it's not like every Jew agrees with him. It's that a lot of the extreme factions are just so empowered and have so much control that, just like when it was the big thing with the Heil Hitler, when again I really hate combining the two, but I really can't help myself because they're so similar that exactly
it's depressingly similar.
If you didn't do the Heil Hitler salute, you would be arrested and put in jail, so that way no one can tell who supported Hitler and who didn't. And Israel's going through a very similar thing. If you don't support these movements, I mean, the only people that can really fight this are the Jews with Ashkenazi blood that live in Jerusalem, and only a small amount of them, is they're so. It's just like a Black Lives Matter in the U.S. It's just so, like, it's not powerful enough, even though they have the right message. No one's listening, and if anyone does listen to them, a huge amount. Like, imagine if Fox News was like 3 times as strong as it is now. CNN's smaller, MSN's smaller, everyone else is smaller. That's where we're at with Israel. So they're acting exactly like you'd expect a country to act when it's put this together this way, when it's led this way over the period of time. And on top of that, the U.S., which gives Israel a huge amount of money, has been saying for many presidencies, just do whatever you want, we'll support it.
But now what we're seeing is actually candidates, especially progressive candidates like Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, I think Elizabeth Warren, and a few others are actually backing away from going to this conference. So that's fantastic. Now, as for the other
stuff, that takes a lot of guts. That takes tons of guts, both from the individual Congress people and senators who are willing to do that, but also for a group like MoveOn.org to encourage that.
Right.
Which I don't think you would have seen that even 5 years ago.
No, you wouldn't even have seen. I don't think you could have that conversation 5 years ago. But the very fact now that people are challenging it, it's people. I think a lot of people internationally and here in this country are just upset at the policies that are being implemented in Israel. And because our country is really corrupt, we have legalized bribery. Because AIPAC is a lobby group, they can buy any political politician at the state level, at the federal level, and can basically force them to do whatever they want or pass policies whatever they want. Because this is the power of lobbying groups. This is the power of unchecked corruption. This is the power of Citizens United and the McCutcheon's decision. And so now there is a chance, a very good chance, for us to reverse this policy of the influence of these large lobby groups, and AIPAC is one of the largest lobby groups in this country.
And especially if we have someone who wins the presidency who hasn't been going to AIPAC, stop taking money from them, all of a sudden they're not going to have any real vested interest in maintaining it. Because again, I'm going to say this another way for people that it's like, yeah, but it's Israel. Imagine if a Iranian or a North Korean or a Venezuelan lobbying group that was technically made in the U.S. and run in the U.S. would just have Chavez come in every couple of years to talk to a bunch of senators who would put $100 million into politics. I don't think that a lot of people would think that made a whole lot of sense and would be corrupt. But because Israel's been doing it for so long, people are used to the same repetitive nature of Israel spending a lot of money. And maybe another way to say it is, what we give to Israel every day, they pay back 10 days every year.
Yeah.
So we give them $10 million a day. They put $100 million back and they pocket the rest. I'm not saying that those funds are necessarily connected, but just to give a size, an idea of output and kind of how much comes back, it's a great investment for Israel to maintain AIPAC.
Now, one final note too, and this is something that we all should remember. Let's look back at when Benjamin Netanyahu was actually addressing the Senate and the House, and basically verbally berating them and browbeating them, telling them that they need to support Israel because we need the resources, and that if they don't, there's going to be trouble. I mean, come on, the way he was talking to our elected officials should upset anyone, and he's been getting away with that for his entire time he's been in power.
And this was when he spoke. It's about 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
he ended up getting a standing ovation, which Thomas Friedman in the New York Times, I've mentioned this on the show before, described as a standing ovation that was bought and paid for by AIPAC.
Yeah. So. And I think I want to add one last thing on this, is that I worry greatly about Israel, because I think Israel obviously has the right to exist, but it has to exist in a way, just in like a neighborhood. You can't have one person can you imagine if like my next door neighbor had the right to just barge into an apartment that I live in and just take stuff or arrest me just for no reason at all? Things have to be done in a consistent and correct fashion. The same reason that we don't like how police act it's the same thing. It's just you should be acting in a way that's professional. And I think on top of that, really my last point on this is Israel in all reality, let's be real, is a client state of the U.S., not the other way around. Hey guys, do you like the video? If so, be sure to give us a sub and hit the bell for notification. You know how YouTube is. And if you have the time, check us out on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and check us out at hardlensmedia.com. Be sure to check out our Patreon if you really support what we do and want to support us at independent media